Trishti IAS presents to a new program, Editorial Analysis. In this program, we'll analyze editorials published in major English newspapers such as The Hindu, Indian Express, etc. for effective understanding of students. In this program, we'll mainly focus on three things. First, establishing link of the editorial to UPSC syllabus. Second, understanding the main points of editorial under key points. And third, discussing the important concepts mentioned in the editorial or which are necessary to understand the editorial under concepts to learn. Hope you all like this new initiative of Trishti IAS. Please feel free to give your suggestions and opinions in the comment box below. So starting with the editorial analysis for today. Today's article has been taken from The Hindu, appearing on 18th of April, with the heading Institutional Fixes and Need for Ethical Politics. The entire article actually focuses on the recent trends of toppling the governments in Madhya Pradesh and previously in Karnataka, and hence trying to bypass the provisions of anti-defection law. Let us see how is it related to syllabus. You can link it under GS2, Governance, Constitution, Polity. In Indian Constitution, you can see it under Features and Amendments, Functions and Responsibilities of Union and States, Issues and Challenges, and Parliament and State Legislature, Structure, Functioning, Conduct of Business, Powers and Privileges. So let us move to the analysis. As you must have all known, recently a power play was seen in Madhya Pradesh between the last government, that is Congress, and the recently formed government BJP after Jyotiraditya Scindia resigned from the Congress and joined BJP, following which 22 legislators went on to resign and brought down the strength of the party, following which BJP was moved to power after it had actually lost the general elections. So this trend was seen previously in Karnataka also, where the government which was elected with a popular mandate through this resignation route of legislators, MLAs. And through this way, what we see that there has been a political trend of bypassing the anti-defection law and bringing down the elected governments. This new method actually sets into play a set of legislators are first made to resign from assembly. The legislators which can be compromised, the gullible legislators are identified and en masse made to resign from the party to which they were elected, thus reducing the total strength of the house. So once the legislators resign, the total strength of the house is brought down, just enough for the BJP to cross the halfway mark to form the government. If it wants to come to power, it sees what is the minimum required number which it needs to form the government, and so many legislators are asked to resign. In MP, the strength of the house was 230. Hence, the minimum strength that was needed to form the government would be 115. However, 2 members were already missing, for which by-elections were due for 2 seats. Hence, the effective strength was actually 228. Now, once the 22 legislators were made to resign, so the strength came down to 206, and hence now instead of 115 plus 1, that is 116 seats that were needed to form the government were brought down to 103 plus 1. Now you would need only 104 members to form the government. BJP already had more number of members than the strength needed, hence now it could comfortably form the government. Now since over here legislators were actually resigning, now they are not even joining the BJP directly, that is instead they are going for by-elections. They are resigning and leaving the house, and in future they would go for by-elections on the party ticket of BJP. So since they are not joining BJP directly within the house, the provisions of anti-defection, that is 10th schedule, won't apply to them. Hence, this is how they are bypassing the entire. Let us see in detail what has actually happened. In MP, after losing elections, BJP wrested power and formed government. As we all know, BJP had lost the elections to Legislative Assembly. Following this, after some time, 22 Congress MLAs. Congress was actually elected to power in Madhya Pradesh. And once it was in power and was running the government, 22 Congress MLAs actually resigned from the party, and later they claimed to be joining BJP. We already spoke of the house strength of 230. Now what did they do? Once these members resigned, they brought down the strength to 206, thus reducing the halfway mark of assembly. So now you would need just 103 plus 1 members to form the government, allowing BJP to stake claim to form the government, because BJP already had more number than 104. So now BJP can form the government. The Supreme Court on March 19 gave order to conduct the floor test. Since BJP already had the numbers, so it could comfortably conduct the floor test. So on March 23rd, BJP formed government and subsequently won the trust vote because it had the numbers. However, as you all know, after this the lockdown came into the force following the COVID-19. Hence, only CM has been sworn in. There is no cabinet in Madhya Pradesh right now, and there is no health minister also, which is very ironical when the situations right now in context of COVID-19 that the country is going through, that there is no health minister in the cabinet. A similar trend was seen in Karnataka also last year, where 17 MLAs of ruling coalition resigned, and later once they resigned and BJP came to form the government, they joined BJP after winning the by-elections. So as you see, this new method is effectively bypassing anti-defection law. Now what is anti-defection law? What is 10th schedule? The anti-defection law comes under 10th schedule. It actually prescribes grounds for disqualification of legislators. That is, what are the grounds when a legislator can be disqualified. These grounds are voluntarily giving up party membership. If a legislator voluntarily says that I do not want to stay in this party, or by voting or abstaining to vote against party directions, whatever the directions party whip issues, if the member of that party goes against it, or if the party has asked to vote on certain matter and the member decides not to vote on it, in both the conditions he or she can be disqualified as member of the house. Though resignation is not mentioned as a ground, the speaker in Karnataka, now speaker has the power to disqualify members under 10th schedule. So speaker in Karnataka disqualified them for rest of the assembly term, barring them from contesting by elections also, because obviously if you are being disqualified for the entire assembly term, whatever term for the assembly remains, how can you come back through by-election route? So this is what the speaker of Karnataka did. However, SC upheld the disqualification. The Supreme Court, when the matter went there, it upheld the disqualification, but it struck down the bar on by-election. So effectively nullifying the condition that speaker had put them to not come back to assembly, Supreme Court allowed them to come back through by-election route. In MP, since speaker accepted the resignation, and hence defectors can now comfortably contest by elections. If speaker hadn't accepted the resignation and if he had disqualified them through 10th schedule, he had invoked the provisions of 10th schedule, only then he could have done something similar to Karnataka speaker, which the MP speaker decided not to do. The anti-defection law is to prevent political defections which may be due to reward of office or other similar consideration. Now, if a legislator or a member is lured, how would he be lured? That you would be getting a ministerial berth, you would be getting a cabinet berth, or you would be given huge amount of money. These are some of the things which can attract legislators to resign from their positions or to come to other party. The law was passed in Parliament in 1985. Now, what happened in 1967? There was an MLA from Haryana with the name Gayaram, who had actually changed party in a single day 3 times. So when this happened, the trend was being called as Ayaram Gayaram politics. And to prevent such kind of politics of moving across the parties because of certain attractive perks, the law was passed in 1985 and it was again reinforced or slightly amended in 2003. What are the grounds for disqualification? Or if an elected member gives up his membership voluntarily, then he is deemed to be disqualified. If he votes or abstains from voting in the house, if he does anything that is contrary to the whip being issued, then he would lose the membership. If any member who's independently elected, if you have stood in elections as an independent member, subsequently you join any party, then you are disqualified. If any nominated member joins any political party after end of 6 months, now you have to remember that if you're nominated on a seat and you choose to join some party after end of 6 months, that is, if a nominated member joins within 6 months, then he is not disqualified, but if he chooses after 6 months, then he is disqualified. Now this is one of the loopholes of this law. The decision on disqualification questions on the ground of defection is referred to the Speaker or the Chairman of the House, and his or her decision is final. You have to remember that under this provision, the Speaker or the Chairman of the House acts as tribunal. Now there are certain exceptions also. The exceptions are where 2/3 of legislators of political party decide to merge into another party. Then it won't be deemed as disqualification, because now it is called as merger and not defection. So there's a difference between the term merger and defection, where defection is penalized and merger is not, given that the condition for merger is 2/3 of the members. Now this is where the 2003 amendment comes into light. Initially, instead of 2/3 members, the strength was supposed to be 1/3. So in 1985 law, any individual cannot change party on the ticket he or she is chosen. He would require 1/3 members of party to join another party, which was considered a merger. However, after 91st Constitutional Amendment Act, this was made 2/3 of the members. The strength 1/3 was brought to 2/3, and now if you join en masse in a strength of 2/3 members of a party, then it would be called as merger and not defection. The chairman or speaker, if a person is a speaker or a chairman and he resigns from the party and then rejoins the party after demitting the post, that is, he no longer holds the post of speaker or chairman, then he is not disqualified. Earlier, the law allowed the parties to be split, but at present this has been outlawed. So for a person to be disqualified under 10th schedule, the petition has to come from any other member of the house. The speaker or the chairman cannot take a decision regarding this law suo motu. That is, a speaker cannot himself go and say that you are disqualified on the grounds of 10th schedule. This has to come from some other member. The law is applicable to both parliament and state assemblies. Now, what are the issues that have cropped up because of this incident? First, it shows the inherent weakness of anti-defection law. Obviously, anti-defection law has certain loopholes which are being taken advantage of by the political parties. Solo legislators defecting have reduced now, since it disqualifies members defecting individually. So horse trading has gone from retail to wholesale. Now the entire chunk of legislators resigns, as happened in MP. 22 of them resigned, and in Karnataka 17 of them resigned. Now this is en masse defections. It betrays people's mandate, and duly elected governments are being brought down. It leads to trend of by-elections after general elections. Now, once general elections have happened, the government is formed, and then the government is being brought down and by-elections are being held. It escalates the cost and instability in the system. By-elections held after alternate government formation. Suppose in MP, BJP has formed the government and the by-elections haven't yet been announced. It will happen after the person from BJP has been sworn in as CM. Hence, defectors now have upper hand as members of ruling dispensation. So, the turncoats are instead being rewarded for defection. So, these are the issues of this new trend of circumventing law and assuming power. However, there are certain issues in the 10th schedule itself, in the law itself. Let us see what are those issues. One cannot take any position apart from party whip, and it has to toe a line, whatever the party line is. Otherwise, he'll be disqualified under 10th schedule. Hence, it denies legislators the right to take a principal position on policy matters, reducing her to an involuntary supporter of party whips. You have to actually obey the party whip only. This impedes the oversight function of the legislature, as members can't vote based on what their constituents would like them to vote for. Obviously, if you have chosen a person to be a representative, you would want him to vote for you and not what the party wants him to do. Problem was challenged in Supreme Court for violating basic structure of constitution, parliamentary democracy and free speech. The legislator loses the right to free speech and parliamentary democracy. However, Supreme Court in Kilhoto, Holon vs. Zikulu upheld the law. However, it reserved the right of judicial review of Speaker's decision. This has come only in after this case, because Supreme Court over here said that the Speaker or Chairman acting in this power actually is acting like a tribunal, and as is with tribunals, there is a provision of judicial review for their actions also. That it has not been able to move its primary objective of preventing horse trading. Now we can see that horse trading is still happening. Defectors are still continuing to defecting parties and crossing over the floors. Hence, the objective has not been achieved. The law does not specify a time period for presiding officer to decide on disqualification. Now, Speaker or Chairman can take his or her own sweet time to decide on disqualification, and nobody can say him anything. Not even the courts under judicial review. They can only say after Speaker takes a decision. It allows bulk defections in the name of mergers, because if 2/3 members are defecting, then it's fine. But if a single individual defects, then it is illegal. What is the way forward suggested by the editorial? To ensure freedom of speech to legislators. Now, the issue of freedom of speech can be resolved through the scope of binding whip should be restricted to certain areas only, such as vote of confidence or say passage of budget. Only in that cases you need to mandatorily toe the party line. You need to obey the party. You need not always be bound by the party whip. This was suggested by Electoral Reforms Committee, Dinesh Goswami Committee. Now the second issue was mass defections. Actually emulate what Karnataka Speaker did, that not allowing the legislators who have resigned to actually contest by-elections also for the remaining term of assembly. This will actually discourage them from leaving their seat for say 2 years or 3 years or whatever assembly time remains. Deeper challenge of corrosion of parliamentary system. That even though the legislators are resigning and defecting from the party, the thing to be seen here is that they are being re-elected through by-elections. Now, who is re-electing them when the by-elections are being held? It's the janta, the population, the voters who are re-electing them. So it's like the voters are also not bothered about who's coming to the power, whether he is defected, whether he's betrayed the party mandate or the democratic mandate. So there is a deeper corrosion of ethics in both parliamentary system and in voters, which needs proper articulation of ethical politics. We need certain steps towards ethical politics that lets public to shun such political maneuvers. So we were talking about floor test, that the government losing confidence has to, or government coming to power has to undergo a floor test. What is floor test? It is a constitutional mechanism to determine if the incumbent government enjoys support of legislature, whether it has the required number to prove its majority, the strength, that is half the strength of assembly plus 1. So it is done through floor test, and it happens at both legislative assembly level in the state and Lok Sabha at central level. Now there is another term to it, that is composite floor test. Now this happens when more than one individual is taking claim to form the government. 3 people who have the required numbers to prove the government, and all of them want to undergo the floor test, the composite floor test would be taken shape. The governor calls for a special session to see who has the majority to form the government. During the floor test, some legislators may be absent or choose not to vote. The numbers are then considered based only on those MLAs who were present to vote. For confidence motion, it is a procedure for government to prove its majority on the floor of the house. It can be moved by government or opposition party. So it's a simple motion or trust vote, and it can be done by anybody. It doesn't has a censure against government, while non-confidence motion has a kind of censure against government and is usually moved by opposition when it feels that government has lost majority in the house. No reason is required for moving this motion, then it can be moved by any member of the house. It's moved only in Lok Sabha and not in Rajya Sabha. So remember this, no confidence motion is not moved in Rajya Sabha, it's moved only in Lok Sabha. So this is all for the editorial analysis for today. Thank you.